Hi, friends. Welcome back. So, I want to have a chat with you about the Chinese economy, Tesla, and our markets. And all these things are tightly connected. There's been a lot of news coming out this week. I'll try my best to cover it and share some thoughts on this. And let's jump right in. So, first, the Chinese government announced on Friday that they're going to be bailing out the real estate market. Now, to what extent is anyone's guess, but I'll give you a basic gist of it. So, as you know, the real estate market has been melting down. A lot of developers were building lots and lots of properties. They're convincing all these people to borrow money to buy into said properties, right? And then they would use that money to speculate on yet more properties. Essentially, it was a big bubble based on borrowed money. And now you got a bunch of unfinished properties. And then you have a bunch of people who borrowed money to, be in this stuff. And no one's getting their money back. This is a real problem. The other issue as well is that let's say you have these unfinished properties and you want to, sell it to get more people. People are like, no, I mean, I already borrowed on my, second mortgage, let alone a third mortgage. I'm just not doing it right. The money's not there. So essentially the government's coming in and they're actually going to be buying up some of these properties. They're going to be finishing some of these properties. And moreover, I guess they're going to try to turn these into affordable housing. At least that's the plan. The other thing they're going to try to do is convince consumers, this is over in China, to buy up some of these properties. And essentially what they're doing, they're lowering, this is the government, they're lowering their requirements based to get a mortgage, right? I think that they're gonna make the down payments less. They're gonna make the percentage right on the mortgage, the interest rate less. Just try to make it easier for people to borrow yet more money. But I'm sure you guys kind of get where the problems are going here, right? We're already have a problem based on too much borrowed money, too much speculation, and yet we're trying to get people to buy in it some more and more government bailouts. The problem with the bailouts is like, where's that money going to come from? Guys, trust me, I get it. The other issue as well is you have the sort of the wranglings between the U.S. government and the Chinese government. This week, it was recently announced President Biden was going to be raising tariffs on EVs, along with other products. I think solar was part of this stuff, and there was a slew of different things. Also, too, we still have sanctions regarding the chip industry from U.S. chips, whether or not they can be sold in China. This certainly matters because what's going on is everyone's looking for growth and everyone's looking for money. So, for example, if the hottest industries, these days we talk about all the time is something like AI, the same way that everyone's speculating on the real estate before, now we're speculating on AI. And there's, Chinese companies and Chinese people in China want to speculate in AI too, but they can't do it without said chips, right? So that creates some friction there. So that what they want to do, which makes perfectly sense from their point of view, is develop their own chip industry, right? Makes perfect sense. This is something like, this is very, very similar and also related. Let's say everyone thinks, for example, that electronic cars are the future. So we can debate when that's going to happen. So I don't dispute that the new technology is cool. I don't dispute that. Sometimes the Tesla bulls think I hate technology. It's just not true. What I won't say hate, but what I question is how far the speculative money can go and how soon will the future be here. So regards to the Tesla situation, how does this relate to the China's economy? So, okay, for your stocks to go up, right? And this is not just Tesla, for any stock out there, be it Apple's another good example as well. You need to sell products to someone who's willing and able to buy it. And you have to mention both of these things because I could be willing to buy, a space shuttle, for example. I'm willing to buy a space shuttle. If I could buy a space shuttle, I'd totally do it. But that brings in, the ability part, right? Even though I want to buy a space shuttle, I just don't have the ability to, put out billions of dollars to buy said space shuttle. Hope you guys get my point on this. It's the same thing with electric vehicle. Maybe people really want to buy said things, but the current pricing is just no good. And so this is where, people or companies try to meet where the consumer actually is. So for example, in China, the company BYD, I think their cheapest car, I believe it's called the Seagull. And this is like a $10,000 electric vehicle, right? So this is going to be a hot seller. It's a compact car. It's cheap. It's affordable. It's the future, whatever, right? And then Tesla comes in and they got like these cars that are like, $30,000. I think that's their cheapest one in that ballpark. And then they go up from there. And it's like, well, as a consumer who doesn't have any money, who lost a bunch of money in the real estate market, these kind of things, the Chinese people are like, I'm getting BYD, no question. Moreover, if you have government officials who, and this talking about China here, who have invested money into Chinese companies, they have a vested interest into seeing those companies succeed. It's natural. Now, also to relate to this, and this is where talking about Tesla is a bit complicated, Chinese people do have money in Tesla. They do. They have relationships with Elon Musk, these kind of things. So they don't necessarily want Tesla to fail per se, but there always are going to be sort of, what's the right word to say it, like arguments within the Chinese government. I don't know if the word argument's the right word, or conflicts of interest, where some politicians will want, another factory to succeed, maybe like a Neo factory or an Xpeng factory or a Li Peng factory. There's different types of Chinese brands. Another, politicians are like, oh, well, I really want BYD one to succeed, et cetera. So there's always wranglings and stuff like that. And essentially what happens in these situations is, say someone like Elon Musk is one of the richest people in the world. If he's like, knocking on your door saying, hey, I'm having trouble with my sort of Twitter purchase, and then I borrowed money to buy said thing, and I have to pay back, people over there. Let's work out some sort of deal because I know you need money, I need money, and let's figure out a way we can convince a whole bunch of consumers to give us money. This is what this game is all about. I hope you guys understand sort of where this is going. The same way with the real estate market, where you have all of these sort of quote big money people, and he used quotes there, right? Because you have to remember everything's based on borrowed money. All these big money people and developers that yet need more money because they have all these products that they've halfway built, which often sounds very similar to something like a Tesla, be it your Roadster, your Semi, or whatever robotaxi thing he's going to introduce, right? You have these products that are halfway built, and you have to convince all of these people to buy said things, and said people, they're concerned about their future and their jobs, right? So this is why I'm talking about the Chinese economy here, because I was reading that I guess retail sales aren't as, whichever word to say, aren't as great as people would like. It's not so different here in the USA. You ask people, this is both be in China and USA, how do you feel about making a big purchase in the next, 3 or 4 years, be it a refrigerator, be it a car, be it a home, these kind of things. And we go back to the thing of like, okay, does someone have the ability to pay? Does someone have the willingness to pay? And it's a couple different, factors that you could look at, right? It means two different things. So let's talk about ability, because I think this is a good one. And we'll also talk about willingness. It relates. In China, you have a big problem with youth unemployment. Now, it's not so different in the USA as well. So essentially, there are many young people out there that look at their generation above them. They're like, I just don't want to be that corporate person that just goes to the office every single day and someone yells at me for, 12 hours a day or whatever. And then I, go back to my life and escape that for a few hours, and I go to sleep, and I got to start all over and do it again. So essentially, a lot of youth don't want to. It's just not worth it for them, right? Is it worth it for me to work that 12-hour day or whatever to get that car that I really don't need? And do you understand, like, if you check out of the system, the whole system falls apart, meaning that if I don't want to work the corporate job, then I don't have the money to buy my Tesla that I don't need, right? But our system sort of relies on convincing you that you really need to get said overpriced object. And I'm using Tesla example, but it could be any number of things. You could use the iPhone as an example, guys. Because this is the choice that many consumers have. In the past, the iPhones, I think they're like $1,000 now, which is really funny. We're talking about a phone here. And, you can look at, say, an Android phone, be it from a Chinese manufacturer. These days, guys, those Huawei phones are pretty good. I think there's a couple other ones. I can't. There's one is like a OnePlus phone. Is that the brand or is that the Huawei one? But I'm just saying, I've actually seen some of these phones. Maybe it is OnePlus is the brand, but whatever. But I've seen some of these Chinese phones. They're pretty good, and I've had a couple myself. They're fine. And if you don't want to go Chinese phone, you can get like an LG or Samsung or whatever. The point is though is that the price of these kind of things are going down considerably, and people are starting to question, like, do I want to work that 12 hours to buy the expensive things? So I think the phrase in China, in the English translation, is like lying flat or lying down, basically just not participating. And I think there are many people in the USA that sort of feel the same way. In the USA, the phrase that people were using is quiet quitting, if you guys know what this kind of stuff is. And again, this all relates back to, do you want to participate in this sort of culture of consumerism? And guys, I know I'm talking about many topics, multiple topics all at the same time, but it all relates, and you have to have a general understanding of how our system works. Now, I know for the regular person out there, you're like, okay, just Chris, tell me if my doggy coin or my Tesla stock doesn't go up. So here's the thing. In order for your asset to go up, there's a couple different things that could happen. So one is there enough money out there to speculate? Meaning, when I'm speculating on something, I'm just putting my money into something because I think it's going to go up. That's basically what it is. It's not really based on any sort of fundamentals. It's not really based on like any sort of numbers because you don't care. All you do is look at the chart. It's like, well, it's been going up in the past, therefore it must go up more. It's the same way that people, when they speculate on real estate, like and it's the same in any city that it's like this big metropolitan city with a high demand to live there. Say like in New York or in LA, you're talking about Beijing or Shanghai if you want, or you're talking about London, Singapore. It doesn't matter. You look at the price of some of these things, you're like, oh my God, it doubled last year, it tripled the next year, whatever real estate, and it just seems like so overpriced. Yet people figure out ways to buy said thing, and why do they buy said thing? Because they think it's a reasonable investment because it went up last year, therefore it must go up again. But you have to remember, guys, our whole system is based on borrowed money, and there's only so much that you can borrow. And so, we had a big crash back in '08. And for those of you guys who live with this stuff, you know exactly what I'm saying. And actually, we had a similar situation in Japan. I believe it was the '90s. And then essentially real estate values went up like crazy. It wasn't just real estate, but many asset values went up like crazy because everyone was talking like, well, I mean, look at this growth and look at all this, everything's going up and it's going to be like that forever. But ultimately, things can't go up forever. It's all based on borrowed money and sort of wild projections. I think the similar thing is happening in China, and they're trying to drastically save what kind of, how it's hard to say, save people who are of importance who are underwater. So when I read that the government is basically bailing out real estate, and to what extent, who knows, because there's going to be a lot of corruption involved in that. And guys, I know it's a complicated topic. So I'll give you an example. When the government says, hey, we're going to bail out real estate developers, well, who gets the money first? Which cities get the money first, right? when the government says, hey, we're going to be buying, some of these houses and turn them into public housing, again, who's going to get it first? Where's it going to get it first? What price are you going to buy said things for? They'll give you vague terms like we're going to buy it at reasonable prices and then sell it to be affordable to, regular consumers. And again, where's this money coming from? Will the Chinese government print money? That's an interesting question. It's complicated. So they generally try to keep their currency at the same ratio as it is to the dollar. Because if they screw around that stuff too much, it screws up their whole import-export industry, like trade. The current problem right now for China is if your real estate market implodes or explodes, or I want to say just basically crashes, and you lose a large portion of your GDP, how can you make that up? Maybe you can start exporting more goods to make up for that kind of stuff. So for example, going back to the car thing, this is why it's important to talk about with the whole Biden tariff stuff. Let's say that company, BYD, makes some pretty decent cars. I haven't driven one myself, so no comment on that. I just say it looks like they're pretty decent. Are they leveled like a Toyota or Honda? Who knows? I would say probably not quite, near that yet. But I'll just remember when we first started talking about Korean cars, be it your Hyundai or your Kia, where they weren't that great, but now they're not bad. And I think Chinese cars can get there eventually, right? And they might even be there now. Again, I haven't driven one for myself, so no comment. So the issue is that the USA is like, okay, we got to protect our market, so we're going to put a whole bunch of tariffs on them. And so the question this has been the reporting this week, is China will retaliate in some way. Hasn't been announced yet, but there's going to be something coming down the pipeline, I'm sure. And so this is what the fight is all about, is we just got in, or we just were in a big speculative, movement on different assets, right, in different companies, et cetera. And everyone projected they're going to grow forever because they grew like that for the last couple of years. But there comes a point when there's only so much market that exists. There's only so many people who are going to buy phones. There's only so many people out there who are going to buy your new electric vehicles, this kind of stuff. And there's all these people fighting for said piece of the pie, right? And one of the reasons why whenever I make a Tesla video or something like that, where I laugh at people, because like the pumpers out there, their world is like really, really small. It's like, and I don't mean mean, but I'm just speaking real. The vast majority of the people that make those videos, they live in whatever suburban, USA town, probably don't have a passport, haven't traveled to other countries. And so then like, what business do you have at all speaking about whether or not Elon Musk is going to have a success in some speculative robotaxi business in a country you've never been to or cities you can't even find on the map? And I know I'm being a little bit mean there, but I'm trying to keep it real, like how ludicrous some of the stuff is you see on social media. My point of view on this stuff, and I want to make it really clear, and I know it's hard for people to understand this stuff, but I'll just say it really clearly if I can. The problem we face right now is our system is based on a whole bunch of borrowed money that people aren't paying back. Moreover, people are nervous about the future. So are they going to be buying yet more speculative stuff? Are they really going to buy that subscription to FSD or robotaxis? Probably not, right? Probably not. Also, talking about any of this kind of thing, are companies going to invest in AI? Now, that's an interesting question because the ultimate question for the company is, Is it cheaper for me to have a robot, or is it cheaper maybe to hire a cheap person? And that's the question. And also too, can the robot ever produce results like a person? So I still think that stuff is pretty speculative in many industries, but in some respects, it will work. For example, I think your simple facts and FAQ or customer service kind of stuff, I think robots are here to stay. I don't think they're going to go anywhere anytime soon. But for more complicated tasks, maybe not. Maybe it'll be harder to replace people. Also, too, the sort of more people that you have that are desperate for work, if the economies and various industries crash, the cheaper people are, right? All these things come in balance. It's always a market of supply and demand. So I know I talked about way too much in this particular video. I just had a lot of things I wanted to talk about with you and get off my chest. But I'd like to hear your thoughts on this one. Again, the Chinese government is bailing out, at least to some extent, the Chinese real estate industry, and we'll see how it has repercussions throughout the rest of the markets, because again, this is all based on, can we save who's underwater right now, and will that give boost to other industries and other sectors in China? And so then therefore our American companies can sell people to Chinese people that hopefully have money in the future. So anyway, that's my thoughts on this stuff. Please share yours, and I'll catch you next video.